A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to episode 219 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. After 3 defeats, Town have bounced back in style with a stunning result, winning 4-0 at the home of the team's second favourites for promotion. That's our first 4-0 away win, boys, since Michael Heffley's shorts came down as he slid in celebration at Rochdale in 2017. That's 7.5 years ago. It's been a while since we went away and pumped someone. With me, Matt Shaw, this week, I've got the boys. We've got Killer and we've got Pozza. How are we doing, boys?
Yeah, not bad, mate.
Yeah, it's nice when we win.
It is, isn't it? We don't have anything to talk about now we've won. It's really strange. It's a really strange day. Right, so let's get into it. So Bolton Wanderers 0, Huddersfield Town 4. An incredible scoreline for many reasons. I think what struck a chord was everybody was really surprised. I think that Michael Duff named an unchanged team from the Rotherham game. I think a lot of people were expecting a change in midfield, weren't they, Killer? But that midfield is set up to press really well, high from the front, isn't it? So you think back to Peterborough, and Peterborough tried to play out at the back, and Ben Wiles and Evans pushing forward along with Josh Koroma leading it. It caused a lot of problems for them, and it's a little bit of history repeating, isn't it? That it repeated again, and Town's high press, mostly second half, seemed to really stifle a Bolton team who didn't have a lot of the ball in the first half.
I think we've got to admit, Matt, that we got it wrong in the preview, didn't we? Like we expected first half Bolton to come out and just dominate possession. That's how Bolton play, and it turned out nothing like that. And we fancied hodging that midfield a little bit, didn't we? And getting rid of either Wiles or Evans. But to be fair to Duff, I don't think anyone expected that midfield three to start this weekend. Apart from him, it looked like it failed over and over again. Okay, we've had 10 days, is it, since the last game to work on it in training. And he stuck with his boys. And now that's a big call from Michael Duff to do that, because obviously Hodge came on and scored against Rotherham with more or less his first touch. You've got your Pender doing bits in the game against Doncaster that people thought was okay. So there's people asking questions there, and we have lost 3 in a row at this point. Yeah, 2 of them don't matter. But to expect changes, I think, isn't like a massive call. But then when you see that starting lineup, Matt, I was surprised. I was very, very surprised. And I'll be honest, I kind of thought it was reckless and stupid at the time. And I know it's ridiculous now, knowing how the game went. And we'll get, like you say, into how the press worked and why that midfield actually won us the game. And it was absolutely the right call to make. But it was a big call by Michael Duff to go with it, because everything up until this point in the last 3 games said to me that wouldn't work again. Not against a team that were in a playoff final just a few months ago, regardless of the form in the last few games. But he got it not just a little bit right, he got it absolutely perfect. And we've not had many managers recently that have done that at any point, and Duff got it spot on Saturday.
Duff, man. Poz, you were at the game in the away end with the wee one. What was it like just before? How was the sort of feeling amongst the fans? Because usually when you lose 3 in a row, there's a little bit of trepidation, but I sort of sensed, we've got 3,000 fans there. Which is a good turnout. I know it's close, but it's still a good turnout. People still have to leave their homes. And I don't think there was any sort of worry or sense of trepidation. People were going excited, even though we'd lost 3 in a row, I felt.
Yeah, speaking to people before and around pubs and during the game, a lot of people were sort of predicting a draw at worst. I think obviously Bolton's start's not been the greatest, has it? I know they were playoff side last year, but they've had a bad start. And even speaking to Bolton fans, they were predicting a Town win, which when home fans are saying that, then you your spirits go up, don't you? I think being Town, you're always a little bit cautious. Local game, big away following usually results in a 3-0 loss, doesn't it? But yeah, we're quite a positive mood around the pubs, and certainly chatting to people around me where we were just before kickoff. People had that good feeling. Maybe a couple of pints and sunshine helped with that. Beforehand, but yeah, I think the midfield were an interesting one. There were lots of debate about that. I've been away on holiday, so I've not actually seen us play the 2 home games I missed. I caught the Rotherham game on some really fuzzy stream whilst I were out there. So
I follow, obviously.
Yeah, I think it was a Spanish iFollow, that were watching it on. But yeah, so I'd only been kind of going on reactions from certainly the 2 league games. I know the 2 cup games we've obviously lost, and obviously we ended up losing to Rotherham as well. But I were kind of a little bit removed from it, and I suppose looking at Town start as we've beaten Peterborough, we've picked up points at home. We had a good start on paper, barring the 2 cup games, which, as Killer kind of said, don't really matter at this stage. So the negativity that I saw online before certainly weren't reflective of the people that were there before the match.
Absolutely. And Town, I think it was kind of a cagey start more than anything, wasn't it? It was sort of 2 teams kind of feeling it, as you do get. But Town, I thought, should have had a penalty quite reasonably early on, sort of in around half an hour. For me, clear push on Koroma. It looks like a penalty for me completely. Even on the replays I've looked at it looks like a pen for me. And I would even argue it's probably more of a penalty than the second one. But at that point, you're just thinking, do you know what? It's just going to be one of those things again where it feels like the referee's against us. It's not our day. And then lo and behold, Marshall gets down the inside left, and that's a great ball. He whips in, and Josh Koroma glances it in, and that's it's a great end to the half. I mean, there's not a lot really happened in that first half apart from a penalty shout and that great ball in, and Koroma scored it with his second ever header, and I think the away end goes mad, and that kind of opened the floodgates a little bit, didn't it, Poz? It was just tell us about that ball, because it's so flat, isn't it, and whipped. I think Stephen Chicken seems to think it's offside, doesn't he? But you can't really tell on the replays. It must be an in-ground thing. On the replays, it looks like a square ball and fine. But yeah, great goal for us, and it just put us in a commanding position.
Yeah, it were a great ball in, and Marshall looks really lively. We're lively all day. He's one of those strikers that don't stand still. He likes to make runs. He likes to kind of find space and make things happen, which is brilliant. Because obviously you've got Koroma, who's a little bit more subdued. He's probably not going to do the running into the channels like Marshall does. And it were a great ball. I think if you actually watch on the replay, it is quite zoomed in on him, and he doesn't even look up. He just kind of wraps his foot around it and almost kind of knows where Koroma is. And it's a great little glancing header from Koroma. And I think it was a really important time to score, actually, because, as you say, Matt, the start were a little bit slow. And obviously you get the top tier up at Bolton, so I'm usually sit really low, so actually sitting really high up, it were interesting to see how we set up and like the patterns of play that Duff were trying to play. I were getting out really frustrated just because you could see gaps that we didn't seem confident enough to play into. Johnny Ogg finding some great space just in that little pocket of space just between their midfield and their strikers. And there were so many times I just thought, if you could just play a ball through there and, can you take it on half turn and drive forward with it 10, 15 yards, we'd have made a lot of ground up. And I don't know, whether it were intentional or just the way that we've had 3 defeats, let's not go too mental and push loads of players forward. But from kind of 15 minutes in, you saw how poor Bolton were, and you just knew that game was there for the taking. Obviously, we missed the header. I think Tom Lee's on another day probably, should have at least hit the target there. And just getting that goal just before half time kind of settled the crowd down as well a little bit, I think, because there were a little bit, nothing too major, but a little bit of growing concern that if we didn't score second half, Bolton wouldn't be as bad as that, and they would come out and kind of put us under pressure. And again, probably it's history, and it's ingrained in us that Town have a really good spell, don't get a goal, and then end up conceding first 5 minutes at second half kind of thing. So I think that Koroma goal certainly settled everybody down, scored it at the perfect time, and then Bolton did come at us early second half, but didn't really threaten us, and then we kind of saw that off, and then just grew into the second half, and obviously, we got 3 goals and a comfortable win in the end.
Killer, Huddersfield Town are usually charity FC, aren't they? When you're in a rut, Huddersfield Town come along and you can get your 3 points and thank you very much. But this team sensed blood, didn't they, at the start of the second half? We'll move into Town upped it. Bolton went to pot. I mean, first 10 minutes, Bolton were okay. They had a little go, but Town just sort of handled them relatively well. And that save from Baxter, what a save that is. Headley came on, did it for Miller, and hopefully Miller's okay, but Headley's put a decent half in there, and he's put a good cross in. Evans is up, and it's a good header, and that save is like, honestly, it's like Gordon Banks reincarnated. I know it's a decent height, isn't it? But it moves to that. It's an unbelievable save, that. And when he saves that, you think, bloody hell, that, you just think maybe again it's not your day. But this Town team really sense blood, didn't they? And that's unusual for Town teams of the last couple of years, to sort of think, do you know what? There's something happening here. We can take this, and that's exactly what they did. And the penalty shout as well. For me, when I saw it, I was like, a bit soft. If that were given against us, watching it on the normal TV angle, I'd have been like, oh, for God's sake, it's not. But when you kind of see it behind the goal, he does push him. There is a physical push, but penalty. Josh Koroma steps up. 2-0. For I think that's 4 goals, is it, this season for Koroma? 3 in the league, 1 in the League Cup. I think we need to have that conversation with you two, because in our WhatsApp group, don't we? In our WhatsApp group, there's a little, let's say, a disagreement of opinion with regards to Josh Koroma. Everyone knows I was the founding member of the Josh Koroma fan club back in 2019 under Carlos Corberán. We have the conch. Even bought a conch to blow for when it was time to talk about Josh Koroma, and it's not been blown many times since. But it even almost got renamed at one point to I think it was like the Headley Horn or something at one point. But he's come back and he's on fire, and I think we need to talk about his commitment as well. I think Michael Duff mentioned, was it 8 flights in 10 days? When me and Killer did the warm up, Josh Koroma was on the bench in Zambia for Sierra Leone, and I googled. I googled him. I googled the flights, to see how long it'd take back, and it was like 15 hours to get from Zambia to the UK, and there were no direct flights either. So he's been through some traveling. It's almost like shades of Aaron Moy, when he used to fly to Australia, come back and get man of the match. Remember he did that a couple of times, didn't he? But and then he's obviously paid for his own upgrade, which Kevin Nagel's covered him for, which is lovely to see. Nice togetherness there. But I think we need to have that conversation, don't we? I've always back in 2019 when he was doing the bits under Carlos Corberán in, when was it, 2020, 21, around there. I genuinely thought there were shades of. It sounds silly now, but when I saw him play out wide and come in, I thought he could twist, he can turn, he can do bits. And there were that little bits of Ollie Watkins in how he played years ago. And I just thought Josh Koroma is going to go on and be a striker. And he was a striker at Leyton Orient. He played up front with, who was the guy that went to QPR and ended up scoring a couple of goals? Killer will Google it for me. Funny name. And we got linked with him a couple of times. But, he played up front there, and then he's found himself more on the wing with us than anywhere else. But he's played some games up front under Neil Warnock where he's looked excellent. That Sheffield United game up front was phenomenally good. Pozza, you don't really think he's a natural striker. Killer does. Let's have the argument. Pozza, kick us off.
No, mate, to be fair, he's out there proving me wrong at the moment, isn't he? No, I just think he's not a traditional kind of striker. For me, I've only probably ever seen him play out wide and cut in, I think, sometimes. And I think even on Saturday, on occasion, he's a little bit guilty of being too greedy. There were a couple, I think it was a moment in first half, and he were kind of bearing down on goal, looking to probably open his body and try and curl one in like he does. And I think it was Marshall that were just square to him, and you're kind of thinking, look, just poke it wide, Josh, and we get one. Not suggesting he's overly selfish, but he does seem to hang on to it a little bit too much. And I didn't think he had that striker's instinct. However, the header that he scored on Saturday, again, looking to prove me wrong there, got in there and flicked it in really well. So yeah, maybe he's my comments and he's out there to prove me wrong, and his little dance is nice, and it's nice seeing him enjoying himself. I think that's the sort of player he is, though. When he's on form, I think he saw under Warnock, he'd had a bit of a poor time with us, and Warnock came in, and I think if you can get his confidence up, you can get him playing with confidence, and obviously scoring is going to massively help that. You know, if you're playing wide or up front, he's probably going to get you some goals. Whether he'll get 20 and 40, as Mr. Killer keeps saying, is there to be seen, I suppose. But yeah, let's keep him fit and let's keep him scoring. And I'm more than happy to hold my hand up when I'm wrong in these situations. And you know, long live JK.
Make it public, Killer, what you were saying about, what was it, 20 goals in 40 games you reckon he'd get or something?
I think every day at this level, at League One level, Josh Koroma, if he starts 40 games or plays like 40 games worth of minutes this season, he scores 20 goals. I think he's a class above any other striker we have at this level this season. And he shows that he's an absolute pest. And not even for the 2 goals he scored yesterday, but the Wiles goal was on the back of Koroma scrapping with 2 set. I think it was, I can't remember who was in for it. I have it written down here. Santos was one of them. And Thomason was the other. And they were kind of just... And JK is tiny. He's absolutely tiny, but he's got the grip between his teeth. And now what allows him, I think, to play really well at the moment, and what really works well for him on Saturday, is Marshall doesn't play as a number 9. He doesn't play as I expected him to play. A young lad, fast lad. You kind of expect him to be what Josh Koroma's doing. And you have somebody else that kind of drops into that ACM role. But Marshall had 1 shot, I think, on Saturday. And in a 4-0 win, you're expecting even your second striker to have more than 1 effort. But he plays as an attacking midfielder. He drops deep. He does all the hard work, and he's just providing it on the plate for Koroma. And now, like you said, the cross for the first goal came from Marshall doing some really decent work on that left-hand side. But it's not expected. I didn't expect him to be able to play like that. But I really think he's bringing the best out of Josh Koroma. He has done in the few kind of little snippets we've seen of it. I think he's great, Koroma. I think he's a confidence player. He obviously has been out on a couple of loans, hasn't he, from us? He went to Rotherham and he went to Portsmouth. And neither worked out for him. So he's definitely a guy where things have to be right around him for him to be at his best. For me, he's always been better as a striker. I think his best times is when he plays down the middle or in a front 2 rather than a 3. But the proof's in the goals that he's scoring. And realistically, I think he should have more goals from how well he's played. Rotherham, he was really good. Like he should even have a couple, didn't he? Yeah, he did. He came on, didn't he? Did he come on late, Matt, against Morecambe?
Yeah, and hit the post, didn't he? And yeah.
But that's it. I think. Sorry, pause.
No, mate, I was just going to jump in and just say I think that's probably the one thing that I have the concern about with Koroma, that he does kind of miss quite a lot of chances that inverted commas natural striker would get. However, if we are doing well and creating 5 or 6 chances a game, and he scores 2 every game, then you know I'm all for that. It's suddenly not a problem. It's those games where you get 1 chance and can he take it?
No, but the thing is, he hasn't played it for so long. He's been with us, 4 or 5 years, and he's never really had a full run as a striker. This is the first time he's played as a striker, really, for an extended period, I think. Even under Corbin, Matt. He didn't play as a striker, did he? He played as a wide. And I think he got 8 goals. I think I looked at that the other day and put it in our group chat. He scored 8 goals in 20, which if you double it, and most of those games he came off in and didn't play the full game, it wouldn't have been far off what I reckon and that was a division above. So I think at this level, if he doesn't get 20 or 40 games, I'd be very surprised. And we've had this argument. Pozza is not the first person on this podcast this year. I think I've had this discussion with Dom House and Matt. Do we have a similar one about Koroma not being a natural striker? Or
I think so. Yeah.
My point at the beginning of the season was I didn't think this season needed more strikers in. If everyone was fit, if Healy stayed fit and Koroma stayed fit, I think we had enough up top to score enough goals. It was down to the midfield being good enough. And up until this weekend, there's been quite a patch there where it hasn't been, and it looks like it's slightly rectified. But I think what happened on Saturday at the beginning of the game is really important. I've not mentioned it here. Is we went 3-on-3 at the back. So our defenders, Lonvik, Helik, and Lees, not man marked, but they didn't have a sweeper. You didn't have anyone free. And normally, even at League One level, it's quite rare that a defense kind of does that. Somebody's normally a freer guy, and especially an older defender. If you've got like Helik, well, Helik isn't particularly old, but he's a similar kind of player. And Lees, normally one of those guys wouldn't pick up a guy. Town did that. And what that meant was our midfield could press so much higher with Johnny Hodd protecting the midfield. Our other midfield too, in Wiles and Evans, were so high. You can look at the heat map. And we play about 15, 20 yards further up than Bolton did for the entire game. And to me, it was
Sorensen was high as well, wasn't he? So it was like a
well,
flat
that's it,
three.
Matt.
Yeah.
We spoke about it in the warm-up, in the driving. Sorry, I need to get that one right. We trademarked it, Matt, but I'll go with
my branding's failing there.
Apologies, Matt. But we spoke about how Bolton like to play out from the back and that they conceded quite a lot of goals this season already, overplaying. And now, to me, I thought Duff would go to Bolton and we think, right, they're a good team. We'll kind of contain them a little bit and then go at them second half. Duff thought, no, I'm not doing that. We're going to go as high up the field as we can and we're going to press them as much as we can with our agile centre midfielders and our agile forwards in Koroma and Marshall. And Bolton had no answer for that. They had absolutely nothing. The more they tried to play out from the back, the more we got on them. When they did go long, we backed our own centre-backs to win the aerial duels. And again, if you can look at the stats, we won far more aerial duels than they did. We were all over them in every single aspect. And I don't think Bolton were ready for it. Ian Evatt, before the game and after the playoff final defeat last year, spoke about how fragile and how mentally they weren't at it, Bolton. And you could see from the first minute they weren't there. And now, 30 minutes in, Dion Charles runs through and Helic makes an amazing tackle, like one-on-one where he's chasing him back. And now, if he doesn't get the tackle, it's probably 1-0 and the game changes. If he takes a player out, it's a sending off and we're down to 10 and it changes. Helic got there and he had no right to get there because he were a good few yards behind him and you'd think Charles was faster than Helic is getting back. And from that moment on, though, it was quite plain sailing for Town. And with you, Matt, I thought that first shout for a penalty was a clear penalty. I can't believe the second one was given and the first one not. It was again, though, it was good work from Marshall, but Santos had a bad day, didn't he, for Bolton? Honestly, if you look how many faults he was at in the goals and the penalty decisions, he had an absolute shocker. I don't think he wants to see Marshall anytime soon again because it really was Marshall that really ripped him to shreds. But then, like you say, you get a goal. You get a goal before when you kind of deserve it, like we did, and it just changes the entire game. And I just don't know what happened at halftime in the Bolton dressing room because they came out in the second half. And if you're 1-0 up at home, if you're 1-0 down at home, you normally come out and have a good go. It's not very often, is it? You go away from home against a team wanting to challenge for promotion. You manage to get 1-0 up away from home, but then in the second half, there's no rally, and there wasn't, was there? They just didn't really turn up.
No, it's flat.
It looked to me, Matt, in that second half. It looked to me, guys, in that second half that Evatt had lost Bolton. He'd lost the players, and now we had it, Matt. We was it the Wigan game under Moore? I can't remember what it was. We were sat there in the upper tier of the Riverside, and we've seen it before with Town players many times. Danny Schofield's very short tenure went that way. With
that was Wigan,
kicking off. That was the one I was referring to. It felt like that in the second half. And maybe when you're Town fans and you sat there in the stadium and you're jumping up and down because you're scoring goals, you don't really feel it. But if you step back and look at it, to me, Bolton lost all faith in Evatt. Regardless of whether it's just or not, the players really didn't turn up in that second half. And we are already a team where if we get ahead, we're very tough to keep hold of, I think, with how fast and direct we can be and how potent we are going forward. And everything just spelled a really bad day for Bolton in that second half because we looked really good.
I mean, if we'd have conceded those two goals, those last two goals we got, if we'd have conceded those, we'd have been going mental, won't we? Because Bolton had a number of chances to clear the third. I mean, it's a brilliant little pass from Tom Lees. Who knew that? He had that in his locker. Yeah. And Ben Wiles finishes it. And again, the keeper might be a little bit disappointed, but I mean, Bolton will be disappointed. That fourth goal is literally every footballing Luddite's wet dream, isn't it?
If Nick Hancock still did them videos, that'd be on it, you know.
Everyone who screams "Get it forward" was having an absolute football-gasm there, weren't they? It was just, and it gives everyone license now saying, "Oh, football teams who aren't Man City should never play out from the back," blah blah blah, which is nonsense. But when you're playing as poorly as you are,
there's playing out
from
back, and then there's, haven't you? Yeah. I was going to say there's playing out from back from like a dead ball.
The keeper should have cleared it when Sheehan passed it. He should have, and he's just.
I think Evans twice it went back to the keeper, and he still didn't put his foot through it, and you just sat there thinking, "What are you doing? You're 3-0 down. Home crowd are already on your back. You know there were people,
and we were screaming,
and there's 4 or 5 players pressing. Just lump it, and you know that's got to be better than conceding a fourth. And as soon as that went in, it were pretty much all stands emptied, and boos were ringing round and stuff. In some ways, you almost felt sorry for the manager because. Yeah, right. That's probably what he's told them to do. But actually, a player should, we talk about player responsibility. You've just got to put your foot through it and go. But they don't. The actual pleasing thing was that Town were making these mistakes happen. It happened at Peterborough. We were 2-0 up at half time, and you sat there. as a football fan, you're thinking, you know it's going to go. First 10 minutes, they're going to come at us. Let's not concede. Let's not sit deep. Let's not just try and defend for 45 minutes and let's try and and attack. And it was similar at Bolton. All right, yeah, we were only 1-0, but you knew that if you got that second, you'd probably go on to get another couple because we're talking about Town being good, but let's not gloss over the fact that Bolton were absolutely shambolic on the day. There were moments of the match where you're just watching as a fan and thinking, why have you done that? I remember specifically there were kind of a ball down there in first half. Even there were a ball down, like our left hand side, and their centre half just comes across and just tonks it into like top tier, and you're thinking, why have you done that? You had at least 3 or 4 seconds to get it under control and try and do something, but you just didn't know what to do, and you just like proper Sunday League have it, straight into crowd. But when you can smell blood and you can see a team like that, you've got to keep going, and we did, and that's off. The changes that we made didn't change the style of play. We did like for like, and we carried on, and we kept at them. And actually, you come away probably a little bit disappointed that you've not maybe got 5 or 6. One other thing on the Evans goal, as you said, Matt, the keeper might be slightly disappointed. I think at this level, what we do need to do a little bit more of is.
You mean the Wiles one?
Yeah, because it's kind of gone under his arm, hasn't he? And it was similar at Peterborough. We've scored 2 goals from pop shots, and I think there were a couple of moments where Ben Wiles has gone through, and I think one of them he played it. To be fair to him, he played a great little ball into Marshall, who miscontrolled it, and then the chance were gone. But there's goals for Ben Wiles and Evans this season. If they're within 20 yards of that goal, I would. I don't think they're going to be listening tonight. But if I could have a word with them, I'd just shoot on sight, because the keepers at this level are not. They're going to let soft goals in, as we saw on Sunday, and I think if we do that, we'll score a lot from midfield. But yeah, just going back to the original point, brilliant to see Town going out in the second half and keeping going from 46 minutes right through to 90 odd, because yeah, if you can get the chance to get some goals, get it. It's a massive thing for confidence levels, not just in the team but in the crowd. I think the win, we're obviously a great win over at Bolton, but I think the way that we won, obviously a 4-0 scoreline, but the way that we played and the way that we dominated, it just settled any nerves that anybody had that actually we may not be, as good as what we possibly thought we were after Peterborough. This league is there for a top 6 finish and potentially even more if Huddersfield Town want it from what I've seen so far this season.
Yeah, I reckon the thing that stands out for me so far with League One, and watching first half of the Birmingham-Wrexham game, which is obviously still going on as a record right now, defensively, teams are pretty suspect. I don't think I've seen a team we've played against where I think their defence is solid. Birmingham look sketchy as anything. They look really good going forward, as do Wrexham. But both of them at the back, they don't look great. And Bolton looked awful. Honestly, they did not chase their runners all day long. Dacre Cogley who played, I think, on the right-hand side? Honestly, I don't think he tracked a man once. Not once. He made so many. He turned the ball over 4 times, refused to track his man. Santos was, again, with his nightmare deal with Marshall, same thing. They just weren't tracking runners. It's quite surprising to me, because I always thought League One was quite good defensively. And it were the strikers that kind of struggled. You didn't have the fastest strikers. Then you had the odd one like Rhodes that might bag 78 in a season or whatever. But I always thought it was more of a defensive first kind of league. But it just, from the small sample size again that we've had so far, it doesn't look like that. It looks like our attack and the pace that we have going forward in that press. And I have to say, like you're saying, boys, the press for that 4th goal is unbelievable. And what really pleased me about it wasn't that everyone just smashed it forward. It actually starts, and we've only got a couple up there, but we sense that they're in trouble. And as soon as we sense that they were in trouble, the midfielders pushed a bit further up. And we have to make a shout out here to Bojan Radulovic actually getting involved in a press and probably being the guy that causes the error from the goalkeeper with one of the worst passes attempted Jay Matete I've ever seen. Honestly, as passing out from the back, and when you should hoof it long, I actually think that might be the worst I've ever seen. I have absolutely no idea why the keepers tried to play it in there. But it was just the press was clever. It's controlled, and you can see it's something we're working on in training. And like I say, Matt, I like seeing it. I like seeing like the Evans ball into Sorensen. I like seeing the press that's controlled when you can just tell that it's actually been made in training. It's no accident that we're good at it. This is something that just brought in, and we're working on it week in and week out, and we're actually seeing it come to fruition. And that's why the midfield working this week after everyone kind of wrote it off a little bit. Matt Glennon did when he wrong with us. We did, and we're no experts, absolutely. But Duff stuck with it. And then this week he showed why he stuck with it and why what they're working on is working on the field. And I think as the season goes on, we'll just get even better at it. Whether we're a top 2 team just yet, I still don't know. But you can see the progression week in at the moment. Yeah, you're going to have an odd setback like Rotherham, which beside the referee being a bit iffy, we'd have still probably got something out of that game. But it's just nice when you can see something that they're working on behind the scenes come out on the field on the weekend and ends in a really nice win.
You mentioned Bojan Radulovic, the lesser spotted Bojan Radulovic, and that's going to be an interesting one as well. And Nigel, and I wanted to talk about Nigel Lonvike, or Virgil Lonvike, as people are christening him that are living in this household with this microphone. He's looked very good, hasn't he, in the last sort of game and a half? For me, I like him a lot. He can play right side, left side. He's quick. I liked what Michael Duff said about him being a bit lazy on the ball, a bit lazy when other people have the ball, and his pace bails him out, and he's trying to get him to be a bit more proactive. I mean, if he does that, there's a hell of a player there, and you can't help but think if Balker comes back fit and anywhere near decent, him on the right side, and which is unfair to Tom Lees, I know, who's playing really well, but Balker on the right side, Lonvike on the left, and Hellick in the middle, and you think that's easily the best defense in League One, and even it's top half championship level. It's bloody good, is that, isn't it? And it's quite exciting. It's not often you get excited about defenses, is it? But that defense genuinely excites me, and I look at it and I think that could be something special. And we've got to talk about Radulovic as well in the same segment, but he's going to be an interesting striker because he has something. He 100% has something. It's just about application for me with Radulovic. It's just, I just feel that he's pushed around a little bit too easy, and League One is tough. And you saw right at the end of the game he was just getting a bit pushed, but he's not fit yet. He's not up to 100%, is he? But for me, if you can get Bojan Radulovic dropping into little spaces and someone running along, and then firing crosses in by Miller and Sorensen, then Radulovic's got the absolute possibility to be to be a menace at this level. And both players have got the potential to excite us. I know Nigel's great. I'm sold on him already, but Bojan's got that if, hasn't he? Sort of question if he does this, if he applies himself. But for me, there were two exciting signs there that a hungry looking Radulovic comes off the bench and wants to press, wants to get involved, and Nigel Lonvike's growing game by game, and two great signs for me, Poz, there.
Yeah, I really like the look of Lonvike. What's his called? You pronounce it again for me?
Virgil Lonvike, yeah.
That's the one, yeah. I don't want to get it wrong. Mr. Virgil. We'll just call him Virgil because it's easier to say. But yeah, he does look really good, Matt. I think he gives you that kind of reassurance because he's quite fast, isn't he? So, we were kind of worried about pace at the back with Lees, Hellick and, another. But since he's coming in, he does look a little bit more assured. It would be nice to see him with Spencer on the other side. I think Spencer playing right-hand side of Hellick would benefit Spencer as well. So I think if you can get that as a back three, that does look solid. I think if you can get Radulovic on, like you say, maybe drop into those pockets of space. You've obviously got Sorensen and then Miller or Headley, who I actually thought looked really good on Saturday when he came on. I actually said to my brother who I'm with, after seeing Saturday, I actually kind of prefer Headley out there when we're in a game like that, getting forward. I'm not 100% on his defensive capabilities, but if Radulovic can kind of receive that ball half turn, whip one out wide to either side really, and then obviously you've got Wiles, Evans, and Mr. Koroma in the middle to try and hit with crosses. That to me makes perfect sense to play that way. I've always been a big advocate of 3-5-2 and that sort of style of football. Quick
something else you and Killer don't see eye to eye on.
I know. I just seen his little smirk there on camera, but I think for the players that we've got available, I do think it is the way that we should play. And if we can get Radulovic fit, I know he came over from Finland when he had half a season kind of out, and obviously got unlucky as everybody seems to do, steps through the door at Canal side recently and picked up an injury, but good to see him get a few minutes and hopefully over the next 3 or 4 weeks he can get back to full fitness and hopefully get a full 90 under his belt.
I want a right to reply here on that 3-5-2 comment. I feel like you just throw me under a bus there, guys. My issue with 3-5-2 is when you're in the Championship and you're scrapping to stay in the division. If you play 3-5-2 and you don't have the ball, it's a back five and you don't score enough goals. If you're dominating games, 3-5-2 can work. We've seen it in Division 3 a long time. Like I accept it. I still don't like it. And you won't find my team playing that, which I just want to throw in there. We're top of our division. So 4-4-2 still alive and well in the Huddersfield District League. But with Bojan, I think Radulovic looks a bit bigger, Matt, as well. He looked like he'd put a bit of muscle onto me. He looked a little bit stronger. He was trying to fight again with Santos when he came on. Obviously, with Radulovic, in just his strength, it's his ability to stay fit. Obviously, we had Bolton and Radulovic coming at the same time, and neither of them have had the best run when it comes to staying fit. He looks classy. With Lonvijk, one thing I really like with Virgil, every time we scored yesterday, he's running all the way from left centre back to celebrate with the lads. And you could see on the highlights after, I think it's the second goal, he's like, "Come on, lads!" He's only been here 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever, and he's already buying into it. Similar to when like Casey Palmer came in and Izzy Brown, I feel like he's bought into it straight away, and I think that's a really important thing when it's a guy coming on loan, because not everybody does that, but you can see already that he is doing. He's stylish. The way he plays football isn't our normal centre-back plays football. He's a calm customer. Sometimes too cool for me. I think in his debut game, was it Rotherham's first game, Matt? There was a moment where he tried to lob the ball, like scoop it over a guy for a pass really early on, at first 5 or 10 minutes. And honestly, at that point, I'm all for it. Like, what are you doing, man? Not another one. No, don't do that, mate. But he's kind of got the I don't know, the personality. When I say personality, not his like personality as a person, but a footballing character, a bit like Chabza, a bit Chalabar when he used to play for us. I think he's got that same kind of casualness where he gets the ball and just he feels like he's a lot more time than anyone else on the ball, which is strange for somebody playing at the back. But he looks like a classy footballer to me, and he gives us that little extra pace. And like you say, if it means it can shift either Spencer onto the right hand side or when we get Bolker back, I think it's helped the team. I think we look a lot better because of it already. It hasn't taken long. It's 2 games, and we already look better at the back because of him. I think he looks like he's going to be an asset for us this season.
Now, I don't want to be sort of like hyperbolic or whatever you call it, hyperbolic, but could this be a season-defining result, or is it a little bit too early for that? You know, you go away to a team that's second favourite for promotion. I know they were 18th. I know they're struggling. I know they're anti the manager. But to win there 4-0, regardless of how well they're doing or not, it's a superb result, isn't it? And surely this is something you can take a lot of confidence from. I know Birmingham are smashing Wrexham at 3-1 or something at the minute, and Birmingham look like they're going to run away with the league. But everything else is open for me. And Huddersfield Town growing. And when you paste someone like Bolton, it just gives you confidence that there's potential in this team to do something that we've only Cozzy and Neil have seen, and that's an automatic Huddersfield promotion. I mean, we've not seen it, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But for me, could this is the result comes out and you go, and it made the headline of not the top 20s, weekend notes and things like that. It captured a lot of headlines. Could this be the launch pad for a good run? And we've got some tough away games coming up, but could we push on?
I think season defining is probably too strong, Matt. I think what it does is it just settles everybody back down after those, from what I read, poor home performances against Stevenage and Shrewsbury, and then obviously the 3 losses. We got 3 wins from 3, which is absolutely fantastic on paper. But again, I didn't see the full game, so I can't really comment too much. But from what I heard and from what you guys have discussed, on the pods, that we got the points, but kind of only just. So it just does something to kind of restore your faith that we've got it in us to go and play games and do that. And I was sort of thinking before the start of the season, the top 6 finish would probably be about right for us. But actually, after seeing us go to Peterborough and seeing us go to Bolton and win, I think top 6 is probably now an absolute minimum requirement for us. Ironically, I actually think away games will probably suit us more this season, because I think a lot of teams will come. It'll be interesting to see how Northampton set up on Saturday, but I get the impression that teams will come to town, especially if we are doing well and kind of free scoring away from home, and just try and try and stifle us and play for a point, try and grab a 0-0. And I think that's the games where, as fans, we've probably got to be patient, and we've probably got to be, understanding of the situation that, all right, yeah, we've gone away to beat Bolton 4-0, but that doesn't give us the right to follow that with a 4-0 victory at home to Northampton on Saturday either. So I think cautiously optimistic is how I would feel right now. I think January will be a massive period for Town, depending on where we sit. If we are in the top 6, looking potentially for a top 2, what does Kevin Nagle do? Does he put his hand in his pocket and maybe get the guys that we need to get over the line? Obviously, we've seen this summer with the striker situation. We've kind of held back from splashing big money. It would be interesting to see in January, what will happen there if we are knocking on the door of a first or second. Let's hope we are, and let's see what goes from there. But yeah, I think you're right, Matt. I think, like I said, I think season defining is probably too strong a phrase for it. However, it does go a long way to kind of reinstilling that confidence in myself, and then probably the wider fan base that actually we are here to put a stamp on this league and get out of it at the first time of asking.
Hyperbolic. That was how I was trying to say. That was the word I was trying to say. Not hyperbolic. Hyperbolics.
That sounds like some sort of weird disease, does that, Matt?
Sounds like you're going to be the next sponsor of Canal Side, don't they?
Yeah.
The hyperbolic.
Hyperbolics. That's a new
Hyperbolics. Yeah, maybe that's just the title. Maybe that's the episode title. Hyperbolics. But Killer, I think what we'll do now, I think it's time to. You've heard enough from us, and I think it's time to hear from the opposition and the Fanzone. Obviously not in the best place after the game. Sent me a one-word review initially, but Ben from the Fanzone returned a few minutes later and did do a proper one. And thanks to Ben for this here now.
That was really poor. And we've seen poor performances from about that Bolton Wanderers side a number of times, but that takes poor to a whole new level. They look bereft of ideas, they look devoid of confidence, they look like they didn't know each other, and the most concerning part is how much longer can those types of performances carry on, because this isn't a new thing this season, and it's sort of curtailed parts of our season last year. I think it was 12 wins in 36 not long ago, and obviously those stats won't have changed very much since then. So yeah, we just weren't at the races today, but we haven't been for quite a while. It's not looking good at present for Bolton Wanderers, and it's certainly not looking good for Ian Evatt either. He mentioned before the game that he didn't feel under pressure, and he didn't think he was under pressure. By the sentiment from the fans in that ground today, from the atmosphere, from the empty seats at 65 minutes, I think that might have changed a little bit. So we'll see what happens, but today was inexcusable and just not the Bolton Wanderers that we've seen before, but perhaps the Bolton Wanderers that we're used to as of late.
Not the happiest.
Tell you what,
full of the joys of
nice.
Spring, isn't it? Jesus.
He's hard in it because Ben sounds like a really nice bloke, but isn't it nice to listen to it from somebody else for a change instead of one of us?
Usually us.
Imagine what Kevin would have been tweeting if he were owner of Bolton after this defeat for them. It was poor Ben. I mean, I'm loving drinking his tears in, absolutely. But he's right. But everything he said, you could see it. You could see. Even without knowing before the game too much about what had gone behind the scenes at Bolton since they lost to Oxford in the playoffs, you could see it on the pitch, and it would be hard to take. And I think if we'd have put a performance in like that at home in a similar manner, following that would have just been the same. I feel like we spoke about it in the drive-in. Matt got it right that time. In the Bolton and Town are quite similar clubs, although it does seem we can't both be good at the same time. If one's flying, one's always in the basement division or pretty close to it. Apparently, only one from the
1920s. Apart from the 1920s.
Well, Neil and Pozza will have to. Neil and Cozzy can talk about that next time they're on. No, sorry, Pozza, throwing you under the bus there. But then again, it'd been 1-0 for today. But no, you could see it. It was Bolton. Bolton are in trouble this season. So when you're talking about season-defining wins, Matt, I think it's going to be easier at the end of the season to see where this ranks. It's important, obviously. Kevin put a tweet out before this game after the previous one, saying it wasn't good enough. And previously, last season, whenever that's happened, it's not gone well after that. This time we've come out with a win, which I think is really important for Town. Really, really important. I think what's actually more important is in these next few games coming up, the tough away games that we have, including Wrexham and Reading, is that we will probably go behind in one of these games. And the season-defining thing to me, guys, will be when we go behind against a good team, how we come back from that. Because we've only really done it to Rotherham, and obviously it's an extenuating circumstance that because we were down to 10 men, the ref was not being particularly fair, and that's the very safe way to put it. And we've had 2 cup games where we fallen behind and looked awful. In the league, against a good team, if we're up against it, does this team today have the mental capabilities and self-belief to get them back into the game? Because the players are similar to last year, and whenever it happened last year, we were shocking when we went behind. This year, do we have the same problems? And we won't know until we face it. The longer we go before that happens, I think the better we'll fare, because belief comes with wins and goals and confidence. But that's, to me, the season-defining part that will come, I think, in the next 4 or 5 games. And from that moment on, I think we'll have a lot better prediction of where we'll be in January before we can reinforce again if necessary.
Just very briefly, remember when we had this discussion in WhatsApp, didn't we? And before the game, we were like, Ian Everts improved Bolton year on year on year. He's got them a promotion. He's got them to the Autoglass, whatever it is, Bristol Street Motors Pizza Trophy final, hasn't he? And he's got them there. He's got them to Wembley. He's got, there's improvements. So looking from the outside in, you were like, these lot are crazy wanting rid of him. He's delivered consistently, year on year on year. And then we saw it, didn't we? We turned up and we saw it from the inside, and you're like, yeah, it doesn't seem right here. And it's almost like shades of Lee Clark in 2012, where, we'd lost like 1 game in 38 years or whatever it was under Lee Clark. And everyone was like, what the hell are they doing? Who do they think they are? And Lee Clark's agent managed to get all his clients to tweet how bizarre it was, didn't he? Remember when Rooney was tweeting, and there were Stan Collymore and all these others going off on one. And as Town fans, we were like, they're not seeing what we're seeing on the inside. They've not seen the regression in play. How Lee Clark's team went from a really good footballing team that created loads of chances, scored a lot of goals, to one that was just kicking it, hit and hope. I think the Sheffield United game where Clark was it was just essentially just clout forward, wasn't it? And it was awful, and it had become like that, and it was pretty poor from Bolton. And so all of a sudden, I'm kind of thinking, do you know what? I sort of understand a little bit now, but I'd probably still give him time. Obviously, I'm not as emotionally invested as Bolton. I do want them to do well because of the obvious, but but they're definitely shades of Lee Clark for me, Poz. But I kind of get it a little bit now.
Yeah, I think it's modern football, isn't it? If you're only as good as your last 6 games, I think if in football these days, and you can do wonderful things for a season and a half, 2 seasons, then you come to start a new season. If you start it poorly, clubs are desperate for success, and someone like Bolton probably desperate to get out of that league. And 6 games in, 5 games in, if you're not looking even like you're going to make a challenge at the top, then fans will start to ask questions and want changes and stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there at Bolton, because what were the 22,000 there? I know we took 3,000, so 19,000 fans, and it's not as you've said, it's not a small club, but there are lots of similarities with Town in regards to the club and the actual area. Obviously, stadium's pretty much similar as well. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens there. But these things happen in football, and as you said there, sometimes when you're on the inside, you can see the slow decline.
Slow death.
Well, yeah, it's like
cold hands of death.
It is, isn't it? You can see it. Yeah, you can see it coming, can't you? And then from outside looking in, it looks strange, but actually, like as you've said quite rightly, we'd lived through it with Lee Clark, and Bolton fans appear to be doing that now over there as well. So it's probably good that we got them early on, actually, because they could probably get a new manager and players and win 3-0. So yeah, good timing on our part.
Sorry, I was trying to be a bit theatric there. I was trying to be theatrical in the week. I was sending voice notes to Danny Carrain because they've started doing casting for the new Harry Potter.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Thing.
Yeah,
and I'm absolutely convinced that there is no one better placed in the world to play the new Hagrid than Danny Kirane. I'm absolutely convinced. So I was trying to send him like Hagrid things, like trying to get him to apply for it and stuff like, you're you're a wizard, Danny, that kind of thing. And he sent me one back, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Honestly, it would be best by a mile. It'd be incredible as Hagrid. I'm gonna die on that hill. Danny Kirane as Hagrid. I'm gonna write to HBO anyway. Freddy Ladapo, going from Hagrid to Freddy Ladapo. That's what we do on this podcast. I spoke to Matt Lax from the UC podcast about what to expect from our new striker, and this is full of joys as well. So enjoy this one.
Freddy is one of those players that is old school in a sense. He's that kind of old school number 9 who you don't see for 85 minutes, but if he scores, he could get 2 goals in a game, and you'll not see him. You'll walk away from a game thinking, "Oh, he scored his winner" or whatever. And when you think about it, he didn't actually have a good game. He didn't do anything. And that's the thing with Freddie. His all-round game is, for us, it might have changed under McKenna for a couple of years, but for us, his all-round game was just nowhere near. He's not strong enough to hold the ball up. His finishing's okay, but he does miss a surprising amount of good chances. But then it still puts enough away to look good. I think his goals to minute record for us, I don't have the exact stuff, but I know for a fact it was very, very good. I think in his first season he got 14 goals, but that was the season that got shortened for COVID, so he would have got nearly 20 had the full season got ahead more than likely. Got a few in the Championship. I got 10 or so again in League One again. He would have got more in that second League One season, but he handed a transfer request while we were top of the league in January, which doesn't help our attitude towards him. If you're happy just to score goals, which obviously is a striker's job, is fine. Maybe in his later on in his career, he's kind of accepted that's what kind of plays. So he might be more of a bit part player for you than he was for us, because obviously later on in his career, when he was with us, he was mid-20s, whatever it was. So he was kind of in his prime, so he played a lot more minutes. If he's only going to play 20 minutes, half an hour every game, that might suit him a lot better. If you don't need him to do too much other stuff, but it's for looking from the outside, it's not a particularly exciting signing, but it could be quite useful. But I wouldn't put money. I won't put too much money on that.
There we go, Freddy Ladapo, according to Matt Lax from the Rotherham podcast. Bit harsh, but yeah, I mean, some of the stuff he sort of says backs up my opinion of why I've never really been a big fan of his, but I can kind of see the uses of it as well. With Freddy Ladapo, I mean, he's not going to get involved with the build-up. He's not really going to lead a press. He's not going to win headers. He's not going to hold it up. He just is one of those strikers that kind of floats around looking for chances. And if you're creating chances, like Miller and Sorensen are great at putting those balls between the old corridor of uncertainty, and that's where Ladapo lives. In that corridor. Lives in a corridor. I'm sure he lives in a very nice big house with a nice car, but he lives in that corridor, and when he gets and there's not many players that are better than him in League One at moving into the box, into those areas and getting in, and the goals he scored at Ipswich are sort of testament to that. Ipswich just played their football and he just wandered off into the box ready to finish them, and if we can use him in that way, then he'll be useful. If we're expecting to play him up front by himself and have him, be the pivot and play around him, that it's just not going to happen. So for me, I think he could be useful in League One in terms of maybe you bring him off the bench when you need a goal. Maybe you start him up front with someone who, like Bojan, who can drop deep. I think Bojan and Ladapo's got makings of a good partnership, because Bojan can drop deep, he can nip play, and Ladapo can go do his thing where he gets in beyond. And I suppose when you're playing awkward teams at home, like your Stevenages and your Shrewsburys, I think Freddy Ladapo will be quite useful in those games, because he pops up in those areas where the ball's kind of like bouncing around in the box, and he's got that anticipation. He can read things. It's just maybe don't expect too much outside the box. But having said that, he's not played for Rotherham for a couple of years, so he may have adapted a couple of things. But for me, I don't really buy the narrative that they've been monitoring him all summer. I'll be honest, I don't really buy that. Because I'm pretty sure
before somewhere. I'm sure a former manager was scout for 3 years allegedly and all that sort of stuff. So it's...
Yeah, I just think if we'd have gone to Ipswich in the summer and gone, can we have Freddy Ladapo for nothing? I'm sure they'd have said yes. But I don't know. Maybe they have. Maybe he's just been on a list of others because we were very publicly in for Joe Taylor, and Joe Taylor's come back around again, hasn't it? I mean, Kevin Nagel's tweets subsequently showed we were in for Joe Taylor, didn't it? And so I imagine he would have been down on the list, but maybe on the list. But so maybe there are elements of truth to that. But we're linked again with Joe Taylor for January, aren't we? I know it's Alan Nixon, and you take things with a pinch of salt, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did. But I don't think that takes away from Freddy Ladapo being useful in the right. I think what Matt's kind of comments are a little bit, like he says, I think they're a bit irked that he asked for a transfer request when they were top of the league, and it kind of rocked the boat a little bit. But I do think Ladapo in League One, in the Championship, when you're not creating chances, he's not anywhere near as effective, obviously. But in League One, I think he will have a use, and I think he'll get a couple of goals. It'll probably piss me off many times in between, but I'm sure he'll score some goals. I mean, everyone annoys me at Townnet from sometimes, but I'm not. When we did the podcast last time after Rotherham, and we went through the free agent list, and I did say I didn't want him, but now he's in the building, and I can see what he's about, and you can listen to him. You kind of think, I think in the right circumstances, this is quite smart, and it's a short-term stopgap, isn't it? Obviously, and experience, 31, been promoted 2 or 3 times through this league as well, so that's good experience. So for me, I'm going to give it a thumbs up for now. I don't think he's a long-term answer to anything, but I think in the right circumstances, and like we've got Josh Koroma playing, we've got Callum Marshall playing, we've got Boyan back, Reece Healy, we've got question marks over, but if you've got those guys fit, Danny Ward's still around as well. So in a group like that, you can find a use for Freddy Ladapo. But if he's like one of your only 2 strikers and you're playing 2 up front, then it's a different story. But I think you can find a use for Killer in this unit of strikers, because he brings something different to what the others do, and that's just he's a sniffer. He sniffs out the opportunities and scores. He's a sniffer.
He's a description.
Oh,
he's a sniffer.
Tell you what, Ben's really depressed after Bolton's performance. Matt sounded like a jilted lover from Rotherham talking about our Ladapo. And to be fair, Matt, you've had the biggest plot twist there since Game of Thrones when you're chucking in I'm not that big of a fan of him, but it's a thumbs up from me. I didn't expect that one, Matt, in the summary there of your review of Freddy Ladapo. He's a fox in the box kind of striker, isn't he? If like you say,
I see the sense in it. Yeah. That's what I mean. I can see the sense. It's a panic
signing, though. I can't accept it's anything other than a bit of a panic signing after the Rotherham game where Ward got banned and all of a sudden we were down to, 1 striker, 2 strikers. I feel like we've... I mean,
the owner was tweeting, wasn't he, that we were going to go with what we had, so...
Okay, yeah, well, that's your words, not mine. So I just feel like it's something that we've done quite reactionary. And to be honest, Matt, I thought we were past that. I didn't think we needed to do that anymore. So I was quite surprised when he came in. I see the use for him. I don't see how we can play with Josh Koroma. Josh Koroma needs a guy like Marshall to do the heavy work for me. And then Koroma is that kind of guy that Ladapo can be, where he gets where the other striker does all the hard work and he can get the goals kind of thing. So I don't actually see him working well with Josh Koroma, who for me is the main striker. And maybe that's why Marshall got the nod at the weekend, where some people may have thought Ladapo could have started straight away. I don't think you can have enough strikers if you're not scoring. It's nice to have the extra options. And when you're playing, like you say, Matt, Northampton at home this week, and if it's 0-0 or 70 minutes on, we're getting all the ball. We're trying to pump the balls into the box as much as possible.
Yeah, you want it on, don't you?
Look at Ladapo's goals from last season. So many of them are rebounds. Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a striker that knows where to be. He actually, to me, seeing clips, and now hold on to what I'm going to say. Don't jump at me straight away, but it's pretty similar to how Haaland plays for Man City in that he does his own thing. He does his own thing.
Jordan Rhodes.
I was waiting for Jordan Rhodes, and I thought that was going to be ridiculous.
And you went, when Haaland's not scoring, people say he offers absolutely nothing else to the team.
I see the
and now Ladapo doesn't score goals like Haaland, not at all. But it's a similar kind of thing in that he goes out and scores goals for himself in the own way he can do it. So he's not particularly a team player, or hasn't been previously at some of the clubs he's been at. He doesn't offer that kind of all-round 9, all-action 9 that I think Town fans especially really, really like. players that don't do that, we don't generally have an affinity for. So Ladapo is going to have to score pretty early to get, I think, Town fans on board. But he hasn't cost us very much. He's coming on a free, short-ish term deal. What is it, 2 years? Which I imagine we've had to do to get him in, because it will have been competition for him. He's past the transfer window, and there's a lot.
He's not going to sign a contract till January till we sign.
No, because other teams will have wanted him. They'll have been desperate at this point, and that's not fair on Ladapo saying only desperate teams want him. But people will be willing to pay more because of that. But he's been promoted out of this division before. He's scored goals in this division before. I don't think any of us are going to say he's a 20 goals in 40 starts striker anymore in this system. But low risk, low wage, and we don't have many strikers because Healy, we don't know when he's coming back. Radulevic's back for now, but for how long? Danny Ward, questionable how much he can contribute this season for various different reasons. So we don't have that many. We've got to get to January. It's a wise thing to do. I just still don't think it's something we necessarily planned on doing, but I'm happy to have him here and quite looking forward to seeing how he goes. And hopefully he proves Matty wrong and can take your thumbs up, Matt, and he scores goals early doors and gets on a bit of a run, because I think he's one of those guys as well. If he gets a goal, he'll get more than one. And let's just see how he goes.
He's a sniffer, Poz.
Yeah, I think obviously he came on for 20 odd minutes at Bolton. Didn't immediately strike me as anyone that would improve. I think when he made his text me saying, how did he get on? I think my reply was, he didn't look much like a footballer, but to be fair to him, when he was receiving ball, he were back to goal halfway line. I think at one point he received it kind of on left flank, and he took about 3 steps forward and then just decided to turn around and play it backwards, which were quite strange, really. But if he's a sniffer, that's not his usual territory, is he? So he needs to be in and around that area.
It's a dog now, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be his nickname, the sniffer. But yeah, I mean, granted, I don't know nearly enough about him to make any sort of prediction either way and comment, but from what you guys have said, like I said, he gives that different option, and if we are getting those balls wide and whipping them in, then if he can poke home 10, and like I've said, if we can encourage the shooting from outside the box and look for ricochets, deflections, off at post, and he pops one in, and if he gets 8 to 10 goals this season, then fair play. It's been kind of worth the risk, I suppose. I fully agree with Killer. I don't think this were planned, and with you, Matt, I don't think we've monitored him like we said we had. I fully agree with you. I think
he could have been on a list.
He could have been on a list, but I'm sure we've all got lists of things in life, and we work his way down them, I suppose. And if he's the last resort, is the last resort. But yeah, don't try pull the wool over his eyes too much with the comments that we've been monitoring him, long term or whatever. It's probably been there or thereabouts on a list.
Yeah, I think there will have been, but I think amongst
the way that it came across were like we've scoured him a lot more than we probably have. So just maybe just don't say that, because it just gives ammunition to people like us are supposed to have a pop if it don't go right. But yeah, hopefully he'll do well, and I'm with Killer. I don't think you can ever have enough strikers, especially if they're all slightly different. So yeah, good luck to it, lad.
Yep, absolutely. If he scores, we're all happy days.
Oh yeah.
Huddersfield Giants are moving out of the stadium. This one has been rumbling on for a little while. We've been hearing bits and pieces here and there. I don't really like this move, to be honest. I know a lot of people seem very pro on it. I support Huddersfield Town first and foremost, but I do support Huddersfield Giants. I've had a couple of season cards there, but I don't really see it benefiting either massively at the minute. I mean, it could do it, but for me, Giants are a rent-paying tenant, which means Huddersfield have got to find that money. We've already lost $500,000 from Kirkley's Active Leisure, from the gym, whatever, around the corner, and now Huddersfield Giants won't be paying the $500,000 to $1 million, whatever it was, a year as well. That's money that Town have got to find in League One. I mean, they might find it. They might find that they can do more concerts, they can do more planning, future planning and things without it, more internationals and bits and pieces. But I'm always sort of thinking, well, you've got guaranteed money coming in. Why would you want to not have that? And for the Giants as well, I mean, they've got like a really cushy setup here whereby the stadium gets sponsored mostly because of the football club, and all of a sudden they're going to go to a smaller stadium, have to find their own sponsors who are where you've no longer got able to piggyback on the football club. I mean, Giants fans think they're going to get, 10,000 stadium and all of a sudden everyone will want to go because the atmosphere will be good. I've never been to a Giants game where the atmosphere is good, depending on whether it's been small or not. I've been to games where there've been 15,000 there when they played Leeds and it wasn't good. But I have concerns about this more for them than for Town, to be honest. But I mean, it could go well. But Huddersfield for me doesn't strike me as a big enough place for two stadiums. In all honesty, it's not Manchester, it's not Liverpool, it's not Leeds. But maybe it could be good. I don't know. Maybe it could be somewhere where they could make it a community play there and stuff like that. Giants women, and you got things going on. But for me, I have a few concerns. But I mean, I'm happy to listen to the reasons for what Ken Davey and Kevin Nagel, etc., say, and take it from there. But I think there are questions at the minute, Killer, whereby you're thinking, well, what about this? Where does this money? Where do you bridge that shortfall and things like that? But
it depends what angle you look at it. If you're looking at it from a Town's point of view, I'm with you. Obviously, they have 20% share in KDSL, KSDL, whichever it is. So obviously, the risk for Town is shared somewhat with the Giants. And when the stadium's got, well, one estimate was 8 million. That was a long time ago of improvements necessary. It'll obviously be much more now with recent inflation and stuff. That it's going to be a drop of income for Town, surely, if they take on the stadium and the Giants aren't here. So that's one angle. Obviously, like you say, Matt, they could look at different things and bring in money in different ways. Maybe Giants train on it less. It gives Town more options to rent it out for different reasons. I'm not entirely sure, but that's one aspect. For the Giants, I'm a Giants fan as well, Matt. I was also a junior season ticket holder. I used to get I was like 15. I'd get the under 18 season ticket where you got all the away games in. I'd get on the train as an under 18s with my student pass and would go into the stadium and start drinking beer straight away because you got free away tickets with your season ticket as a Giants. I used to love going. But one of the problems the Giants face is that the stadium's a joke when you look at it on TV and there's no one in it. It's far too big for them. It is too big for them. And now one game I remember, I think Ken Davey offered free entry for a big announcement and it ended up being £100 season tickets and there was 15,000 there. I think it might have been against Leeds. I can't remember. They were a long time ago. And it looked good. And the atmosphere, like you say, Matt, it's not great at home, but it's not going to be when you've got, they have 3,500 there this weekend against, was it last weekend? They had 3,500 in a 25,000 seater stadium. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It hampers recruitment from overseas, I'd imagine, as well, because it doesn't look great. So for the Giants side, I understand it, Matt. I think if they're going out and getting a 5,000, 6,000 seater stadium, they probably would fill it every week and the atmosphere would improve. We've had a year in the Northern Premier quite a while ago with the Giants where we used to go to Doncaster and Hunslet and all these kind of smaller stadiums. And the atmosphere in those stadiums were really, really good. It was a really good season. I went to most of the games that year.
When was that? It was like
2001 or something? 3, 4 or something like that. Stanley Jean was ripping to shreds at that point.
Oh, it was good, Stanley Jean, wasn't it?
It is more important, I think, in rugby league to have a stadium that's full rather than a big stadium that's empty. I understand the Giants' desire to move, and I think it would improve the Giants' fortunes. And actually, that's not a Town argument; it's a Giants kind of argument. But two successful clubs for the Town's not a bad thing, is it? I think it's a nice thing. We'd heard rumours about this kind of thing being looked at by the Giants, and this is probably the first time that Ken Davies come out himself in public and said that's what they're looking for. So I can see the opportunity on both sides, really, to be honest, Matt.
Okay, cool. Pause.
Well, I'm not, as you know, I'm not a rugby man, so I don't pay too much attention to Super League, and certainly Huddersfield Giants have very little information on them. But I can fully see. I think I'd seen some arguments between Giants fans and various other Super League fans on Twitter, as in, what do the Giants bring to the Super League? And I did note the lack of attendance on there. So I think if Giants can make it work for them, is Huddersfield a two-stadium city? Probably not, but I don't think they're probably going to go out and build anything other than what you probably see like somewhere at Northampton, a nice little steady 8,000 maybe, and like you say, maybe use it as a community stadium and have things like the junior rugby finals there. You could even potentially use it for Huddersfield Junior Football League finals could be held there and stuff like that, and maybe they could get it in that way. I think from a Town point of view, I remember when Kevin Nagel first came in, one of the big things that he wanted to do was make better use of the stadium. Now, whether or not the Giants are holding that back in any way, shape or form, maybe a player in this. I can't really see why they walk, because surely if they've 20% shareholder, any extra income they would get 20% of, which should only be a good thing for them. But maybe there's issues there. But I do remember, Killer, we were at the ATT, didn't we? And we kind of questioned the produced income via sponsorship of the stands, and it was the global brand ambassador or whatever title he's got, the Dom. I'm not even going to pretend to. I'm not even going to try and. That's the guy. Yeah, and he was very kind of passionate, weren't he, that he would be able to bring in extra funds, and the bloke who used to work at Sheffield United was coming to bring in the extra income. They had a real belief that once they got hold of the stadium, they would be able to really promote it and really drive income through it. So yes, there's the potential that there's a loss in revenue due to the rent, but everybody down there seems really, really confident, rightly or wrongly, that they can make this stadium work. And if it means Giants moving out for us to really drive things and kind of get what we want and push it forward, then long term for me, it's only a good thing, really.
Interesting. Certainly open to both sides of the argument. I'd love both teams to be successful. That's what I think people from Huddersfield. I know there's a really weird anti-Huddersfield Town thing from some Giants fans and vice versa as well. It's weird. People, sometimes you lot from Huddersfield vex me. I don't understand why you'd hate a team from Huddersfield. I don't get it. But it's just, I'm really hoping both teams are successful. That's what we want, isn't it? And stadium. Maybe we'll get REM back, Killer, like the good old days, and Bon Jovi and what have you, and we'll have some good times. But Huddersfield Town women won back to winning ways as well. Won 3-1 against York this week as well in the WNL, which is a great result for the ladies. What we'll do is we'll try and get a comment or an update from Beth Stanfield sort of monthly, I think, and then with how those guys are doing. And we'll probably try and do some updates on how the academy teams are doing as well. Huddersfield Town academy teams, that is, at some point as well, although there's not been a lot of information out really about them as much, but we did see quite a lot of them play against Doncaster, which was quite interesting, and it's still Tom Yapenda who is the one that's really sort of outstanding at the moment. But we did have, I noticed we had got a call up for Wales under 21s, didn't we? I've forgotten his name, Killer. But we had an international call up as well, which is very nice. And I think that's all we've got time for this week, because I'm starting to ramble. Poz, good to hear you back on the pod. Killer, thank you very much as always, and we'll be back hopefully a little bit later this week with the Drive-In episode 2. Let's hit those credits.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.